We're here with Nathan from Tuned by Nate, and we're just going to have a quick talk about Fredric Aasbø's FRS here. So, Nathan, this car is pretty well known all around the world. It's got a lot of internet hype going for it, and the most obvious thing, I guess, is it's definitely not running any typical FA20 engine anymore. It's got a NASCAR V8 in it. Obviously there's a lot more capacity and a lot more power there, and there's a few teams running the NASCAR engines over in the US. What makes them such an attractive combination?
Well, I wanted to correct, first of all, it's actually a NASCAR-based engine, but we're actually running a short course setup in it. Okay. The reason why is because the NASCAR setup is quite peaky as far as power-wise. We needed to actually, change some of the configuration around to be able to utilize its power band in drift.
So with NASCAR, they're only really operating at a fairly narrow power band or rev range, so they can afford to be a bit more peaky, make more power, whereas you need the wider power band?
Yes.
Okay, so what changes did you make to the NASCAR-based engine specification to get that wider power band?
That is something maybe you should probably ask Ed Pink about. That's something that they would probably not allow us to talk about.
Understood, yeah. Everyone's got to have their own trade secrets. Can you tell us a little bit about the engine, though, in terms of capacity?
It is a 357. Which is we kept the same displacement as the NASCAR setup. We changed the piston and camshaft configurations around to be able to call it a short course setup. Yeah.
And I mean, again, without trying to get too far into the secret technical details, is it safe to assume that the changes you've made to get that wider power band, make it less peaky, would have probably reduced the peak horsepower level slightly?
Yes, slightly, but it's almost insignificant, really. We thought that would actually hurt us in the top, but we were able to come up with a really good package with Ed Pink, and we're very happy with the setup that we have now.
Peak power levels, and what sort of RPM range are you using on the engine?
The engine's capable of running to 9,500 RPM. We are, I would say, we're slightly over 700 to the wheels on this car at this point right now.
Yeah, that should be enough to get it going. And what have you got managing the engine? What's the electronics package on the car?
Motec, of course. We're using the M800 and the Motec SDL3 display, and we're also using the PDM30 on this car to control the power management of the vehicle.
In terms of the Motec product, more recently the Motec M1's come out. You're still using the 100 series. How would you sort of compare the two products?
You can't really. I mean, the M800 is such a workhorse. It's been around for over 10 years, and it's good old faithful, old reliable. And the reason why we use the M800 series on these cars is because when we came out with these cars, the M1s were not available yet. The M1 by far is superior to just about anything out there. Its processing speed, and its capabilities, and its tuning ability. The fact that you actually have the ability to buy the build license and create your own firmware to do whatever you want. I mean, that just kind of puts it up to another level there.
So on that basis, if you were to have your time again with the build on this car, would it be M1 that you went to?
Without a doubt, yes, absolutely.
Now, in terms of tuning, your tuning strategy with this car, being naturally aspirated, does that make it easier for you to tune than a turbocharged or supercharged engine?
Not really. I believe tuning engines, I mean, if you listen to what it wants and gives it what it needs, I mean, every engine is actually quite easy to tune. V8s in general, actually, no, more cylinders in general obviously makes tuning a little bit easier. I don't know if anyone's ever figured that out, but I mean, yeah, more cylinders, easier.
Is there anything special you're doing on this engine in terms of individual cylinder tuning to make the engine run more evenly?
Yeah, we're running individual EGTs on this vehicle. I did not actually have the time to be able to run individual lambdas, but we try to, create balance within the engine itself. Absolutely.
Am I allowed to ask you, with those individual cylinder exhaust gas temperature sensors, what sort of trims do you find you have to place across the 8 different cylinders to get the EGTs equal?
Anywhere from we're taking out some maybe 5%, adding a couple of percent here and there. It's not a whole lot. I mean, I've heard of some extremes that people have had to do to be able to create balance in the engine, but a lot of it, I think it's because their header design or maybe their manifold design is not quite working together.
I notice on the engine you've still got the sort of 4-barrel style inlet manifold. Do you see that as a disadvantage compared to a more conventional sort of front-facing plenum with a single throttle body?
Well, the thing is, TRD spent quite a few dollars developing this particular manifold for the 4-barrel. We've considered using other configurations, but after doing some tests with Ed Pincom, we discovered that this is the best choice. Even though, albeit anybody that looks at it says, it looks kind of funky, but come join us at the track. We'll show you what it's all about. Gets
the job done, and that's the important part. Okay, what about transmission and differential? What's the parts you've got in there?
We're actually using a Hollinger 6-speed sequential transmission and a Winners quick change rear end, which is pretty much the hot setup. Yeah.
I see a lot of drift cars are still running the 4-speed G-force style transmission. Do you find the 6-speed transmission with the tighter ratios, that is an advantage even though the driver has to shift gears more often?
We're actually only using the 4-speed. I mean, even though it's a 6-speed transmission, we've geared it to where it's similar to the G-force. I mean, the G-force is a great transmission, but as far as superiority, this transmission is going to take the cake for sure.
And I've got a FRS of my own. It's only a street car, and we've put a turbocharger on that. Obviously, V8 versus the FA20 engine. Is there any way of getting those FA20 engines making the sort of power reliably that would be competitive with a NASCAR-based engine?
There's a few people out there, like Evasive guys in California. There's a few guys that are building these engines, the FA20. To be able to handle quite a lot of power. I think in stock form it's a little short on some reliability due to cost of the manufacturing of the engine itself. But you can order or create parts to make it stronger to be able to handle 5, 6, 700 horsepower. I'm sure.
But the old story, there's no replacement for displacement.
Yeah, it's called a turbocharger or a supercharger.
All right, in terms of the data on this car, obviously it's a very high-level car, and Fredric Aasbø is a top-level drifter who's obviously very competitive. What are you relying on from the data to improve the car between rounds?
We're constantly looking at the air-fuel ratios. We're giving them feedback information and speed and line, and we're logging over 200 plus channels on both of these cars, and when you get to the higher levels of motorsport, you have to have data. Without it, you're flying blind, and you might as well just go home, because when something goes wrong, you'll never figure it out. Mm-hmm.
And so you are constantly making changes to the engine tuning based on that data round after round?
I would say once we get into competition, we usually are happy at that point. In practice, we're making a few changes, trying to make the drivers more comfortable, maybe changing some of the Excel fuel setups and stuff like that. And, we're having to use so many different types of fuels as we travel around the world with these two cars. So there's going to be some differences in how it reacts, whether we're using Sunoco GT Plus or Martini Racing fuels, and there are some differences for sure.
Just talking about that fuel for a second there, so you're actually running a gasoline-based fuel on Fredric's car here, not E85?
Yes, that's correct.
Do you see an advantage or a disadvantage running those fuels versus E85?
On a turbocharged application, I believe so. The E85 definitely helps the turbo work a little bit better, and as far as natural aspirate, I don't think so. I'm sure if we did enough tests and we had some time, we'd probably figure out a good use for it, running higher compressions and whatnot. But for right now, we're pretty happy with the setup now. Mm-hmm.
Cool. Look, thanks for your time talking about that car there, Nathan, and we wish you and Fredric all the best for the weekend.
All right, thank you. Appreciate it.
For online tuning courses, visit learntotune.com.